All right, Jake Butt, you played in Ann Arbor. I played in Columbus. What's a better college town?
You know, the framing of the question matters. This is important for our viewers because you said college town. You know I have respect for Columbus, but college town, there's no better college town in all of America than Ann Arbor.
You're tripping. First off, I know you're going to say, oh, Columbus is such a big city. How can it be a college town? The Buckeyes are the hottest thing rolling there. They got the Columbus Blue Jacket. They got the crew. There's nothing really that people are that interested in except for Ohio State. So it definitely is a college town regardless of the size.
If Ohio State leaves Columbus, Columbus is still Columbus. There's big business, there's restaurants, whatever. Ann Arbor and Michigan are tied together through eternity. They bend space and time. Ann Arbor is the college town.
If Ohio State left Columbus, there'd be a lot of depressed people. I think there would be a mass exodus out of the city, to be quite honest. The business might try to keep some people there, but I don't know if it'd be enough.
What's the rankings? They do rank these things. The experts rank these things,
Who
right?
are the experts? What are the qualifications?
I don't care. They are the experts.
Whoa, so anybody can be an expert nowadays.
No, you got to have qualifications. You're exactly right, but they are the experts. Ann Arbor stands #1, not just in the Big Ten, not just between Ohio State and Michigan. #1 in America.
I think America be lying sometimes. That's the issue here.
Fair enough.
Yeah, buddy. But this is Red Corner, Blue Corner right here on Stadium. That is Jake Butt, the All-American tight end from Michigan, won a Mackey Award back in his heyday. I mean, the dude was balling out there, and we had some good battles going back and forth.
And this is Joshua Perry, the captain, the national champion, the man with all the opinions that you could ever need. Great to do the show with you, man. I'm excited to kick this thing off.
No, I'm excited to kick it off, too. And this show is about you, the viewers, as well. We're going to have a lot of interactive content. So when that QR code gets up there, make sure you scan it so you can get in on the conversation. But we're both on the road this weekend. You were back home in Ann Arbor. I was in South Bend in enemy territory. So give me the best part of your weekend covering the game.
I think I know yours. So I'll just start this one off. But as we mentioned, I'm from Columbus, so that's where my birth city. But home to me is Ann Arbor, so I love to go back home, seeing some of the people, seeing Coach Harbaugh, seeing the staff, love to be in the booth. But to me, the best part of it was the first day of fall. And you can feel that in the air when the air changed a little bit. It's nice and cool. It's crisp air.
Ooh.
I just like to be around campus. Soon the leaves will change. It was that first day this weekend that just felt like fall.
Man, nobody told me to send in pictures. I had photos, videos. I mean, come on, guys. But yeah, I mean, it must have been nice to be back there. I know the game wasn't super eventful, but I think Michigan looks really good. They're winning the way that they like to win, which is kind of gritty dominant. So I'm glad you had a great time there. South Bend, dude, it was ridiculous. Like, I had not been in an environment like that in a long time. Reminiscent of when you and I went back to Columbus for Ohio State, Michigan, except for there were more visiting fans in town, so you could feel a lot of tension throughout the day. But the way that game was swinging back and forth, and especially at the end, like the Notre Dame fans were ready to storm the field, and Ohio State goes down there at the end, and their dreams were crushed.
I saw a lot of red in the crowd, too. I mean, Ohio State fans, they travel well. What was the buzz like on campus? That's what I always love, is you can just feel this energetic buzz leading up to the big games.
It was great. I mean, a lot of tailgating going on, and credit to the Notre Dame fans because they welcomed Ohio State fans with open arms to kind of hang out before the game. It was a really cool vibe, but we were doing a show out there, and there was some jawing back and forth, like an Ohio State fan yelling at a Notre Dame fan. Got a little testy. My wife was worried, like, y'all caught in the crossfire. I said, we should be good. So definitely felt like big-time football atmosphere, but we've got a guest that we want to bring in, Matt Goldman, who's a senior at Ohio State, and he was in South Bend for the game. Now, tell me, what was this experience like as a Buckeye to get that win?
Like a fever dream, Joshua and Jake. You couldn't make it up. It kind of felt scripted in a way, or sometimes it didn't feel like a movie because, like, you can't make that up. It felt like Hollywood was just able to put together such an incredible story. As Joshua talked about, it was an unreal environment in Notre Dame. The fans really nice, but they're in a tough environment to be in, and it was really cool to be there. A lot of Buckeye fans traveled, and they made it worthwhile at the end with a Chip Trayanum touchdown.
Matt, walk me through the emotions, you being a senior, you being a student. I mean, the game, Notre Dame scores the go-ahead touchdown, right? And then you're looking at it with your season early. Feels like the season on the line. At least that was the pressure for Ohio State. They needed that big win. What was your emotion like kicking off that final drive leading up to that Chip Trayanum touchdown?
Stressful. I just couldn't get through it. I don't bite my nails, but I was close to doing that because I was just so nervous, my heart pounding. So many Notre Dame fans screaming and cheering every third down. They really made it a tough environment, but Kyle McCord was able to drive down the field in it. Every time they got closer to the red zone, I felt a little better, but I was still so nervous at the same time.
All right, I would say that this was the biggest game of the college football season to date. So coming out of this one, if you were an AP voter, where would you rank Ohio State?
I would have them where they are right now at number 4, just because of that they haven't proven to be the best team so far, but they have a unbelievable win against Notre Dame that should prove that they're one of the better teams in the country. But they still haven't proven, especially in the Indiana game early on, that they didn't get off to the hot start, and it's based on the whole season. So Ohio State at 4 is appropriate. And I'd rather, as a fan, not have Ohio State number 1, because that means you have people and targets on you. So stay away from that number 1 spot. And having Michigan in front of Ohio State also makes it better.
Ohio against the world. That's what Ryan Day said.
I would say this, too. I mean, one of the more impressive wins to start off the season, particularly being on the road. Matt, thank you so much for the feedback and the insight of the game. Now, speaking of AP polls, as we just previewed there with Matt, we got Michigan at 2, we got Ohio State at 4. That's what we've been accustomed to knowing with the Big Ten. But right behind them, look at number 6, Penn State. And I know you and I have some opinions on this one.
Yes, we do.
Penn State sitting 4-0 at number 6, coming off a big win against Iowa. Joshua, are they underrated or are they overrated?
I would say properly rated, probably leaning toward overrated. And this is not a knock on Penn State. I think Washington's wonderful, USC behind them, and what we saw from Oregon. But here's the real thing, is the more that I've watched Penn State play football, the more I ask the question, how good is this team really? Got a great start against West Virginia, and Drew Aller looked like the real deal. Then next game you're playing Delaware, not too much to take away from that. All of a sudden they get to Illinois, and it feels like it's a bit of a buzzsaw for them. Drew Aller, 48.5% completion in that game, did not throw for a touchdown. The offensive line struggled to handle a guy like Johnny Newton, who's a first-round pick. Well, you know what some of these other teams have on their defensive line? First-round picks. Made the offensive line and the quarterback uncomfortable. And I'm trying to figure out this run game. You got 2 of the best backs in the conference. They're 9th in yards per carry in the Big Ten. This, to me, does not feel like an offense that is what people are trying to sell to me. Now, I will concede, defense is really, really talented. They've played well, but there still is that question. If you get a team like Michigan who's going to try to run it up the middle, are they going to put another 400 burger on your head in terms of rushing yards like they did a year ago?
9th in yards per carry is a big stat because that's what limited Penn State's ceiling a few years back. They just had no run game. The offensive line struggled to protect the quarterback. But I just say, what's the potential? Can they have an explosive run? I look at the tape and I say, yes, they can. It's just a matter of time. Offensively, we can talk about the lack of explosives, but numbers don't lie. 40 points per game, nearly 450 yards per game. And Drew Aller, I mean, you could talk about the Illinois game, but the totality of work matters. 67% completion rate, 900 yards, 8-0 touchdown to interception ratio. Those turnovers matter in the world of analytics. Turnover margin is a huge tell-all of and predictor of a team's future success. Penn State, number 1 in college football in turnover margin, 11-0.
Okay, but here's the thing about that, though. Illinois gave them 5 takeaways. It literally threw the football to them. And I would ask the question coming out of that Illinois game, if Penn State didn't get that many chances at it, right? If Penn State was a team who did not take the football away 5 times in that game, what would the final score have been? Because that game was too close at half. They did the same thing against Iowa, by the way. That game was really close at half. They had 99 plays and only came away with 31 points. I understand everything you're saying. And this is not a knock on them because I do think they're a good football team, but when we start talking about the greats in the Big Ten, we overanalyze Ohio State. We overanalyze Michigan. We're very critical of those teams. And if we feel like Penn State's going to be like that, we got to have the same criticism for them, too.
When you talk about turnovers and Illinois gave them turnovers, you're right. You still have to make the play, though. You were in South Bend this weekend for Notre Dame, Ohio State. Sure. JTT had a chance to intercept the ball on a screen. They gave him the ball. Dropped it. Now, Ohio State still came away with the win, but that's a point here to be made is that teams can give it to you, but it's still on you to finish the play.
Yeah, I mean, Illinois has been giving it to everybody, but that's neither here nor there. I think this is going to be a fun thing to watch, though, because Penn State is a team, to your point, with the high ceiling. I'm critical of whether they're going to get to that ceiling this year.
Fair enough. Now, we just laid it out for you, right? Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. No one's arguing that those are the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. Now, where we can have an argument, who's at the bottom of the Big Ten? So I want to give you the floor here, Joshua. Why don't you kick it off with your bottom 4 teams in the Big Ten?
All right, so I'm going to give you my bottom 4. At 11, I have Illinois. They can't protect the ball. They also cannot stop anyone. Purdue is at 12 for the very same reason. They turn it over too daggone much, and they can't stop anyone. Michigan State at 13, and it's all that's transpired with Mel Tucker. They come out against Washington. I know that's a really good team, but they look like they had no intentions of playing in that game. And then against Maryland, they just kept doing dumb stuff to hurt themselves. And I think Maryland's a pretty good team too, by the way. And then Nebraska at the bottom. Woof. Again, turning the football over. I do think there are redeeming qualities about their defense. I'm also questioning the types of offenses that they've played. When they match up with the Michigan in a couple weeks, I mean, or this week, right? Is that a team that they're going to be able to hold up against with that type of offensive line? I don't think they've been tested like that. And their offense has given me not a lot to be excited about outside of quarterback runs.
Well, you left Minnesota here. We got a question from JK saying, is Minnesota not an option for the worst Big Ten team, considering the huge lead they gave up to Northwestern? Don't worry, Jake. I got your back.
All right.
May I have the floor?
You have the floor.
For my bottom 4. And I see, so you picked Illinois as your 11th team. Maybe that's why you're so tough on Penn State. I have Illinois ranked a little bit higher than that. My 11th team is Indiana. And if you want to talk about lack of offense.
Sure.
It's the Hoosiers. Defense, I'll give the defense their flowers, right? Aaron Casey's flying around, career-high tackles last week. The defense is tough as nails, but there's virtually no offense. 17-point favorite last week, and you almost lost it in overtime. There you go, Jake K. I got Minnesota at 12. After that loss, to have a 21-point lead, with everything that happened to Northwestern this offseason, to blow it, the lack of details with special teams, the self-inflicted wounds, the normally reliable defense folding. That's why I got Minnesota at 12.
Okay.
Then there we go. Me and you agree. Purdue, Michigan State certainly have to have those teams in the bottom 4. Purdue, it's looked so bad at times. There's only been spots of good. Michigan State, even fewer spots of good, particularly in the last 2 weeks.
So you don't think Nebraska's a bottom 4 team in the conference right now?
I like Nebraska's defense, and what I see is a team that Nebraska-Minnesota. Nebraska was right there with them. I mean, it's a dealer's choice.
But you don't think Minnesota's any good?
I agreed, but what I'm saying is I will not be surprised to see Nebraska continue to improve throughout the season. They went with the quarterback change. Things look a little bit better. I trust the defense, too. I trust the defense flies around as well. So I think Nebraska, we don't be shocked if they start rolling off a few wins.
Yeah, I was close to putting Indiana in there, but the one thing I will say is they've done a better job of protecting the ball than some of the teams that I put in my bottom 4. They've also taken the football away a little bit. I like their defense. Their offense is abysmal, though. It's trouble. The thing that I keep going back to, though, is the quarterback got a little wiggle, and they got Lucas out there. And I think that he is a primetime type baller. So it's tough.
Protect the football in Nebraska. Maybe I have to that's a good point. Protect the football in Nebraska. That's not a happy marriage, so I think you're onto something.
All right, well, we're going to take a break right here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. But coming up, we're going to hit the message boards. It's time for the voice of the people. Find out what's being said in the streets. That's in just a few. But coming up after Red Corner, Blue Corner, be sure to stick around for Stadium's new show, Rivals Down South. Get your SEC football fix at 2:30 Eastern right here on Stadium. Welcome back to Red Corner, Blue Corner. Jake Butt representing the Blue Corner. I'm Joshua Perry here in the Red Corner. And we want to make sure that you pick a side on the discussion that we just had. Who's the worst team in the Big Ten? And of course, the YouTube is popping right now. So go ahead and get over there and get in the chat because we want to hear from you, the fans. But it was a great weekend on the Big Ten message boards. And we want to give you the people's opinions on this platform right here. So let's hit up the Ohio State message boards. Heater posted this after their win over Notre Dame. They won in spite of Ryan Day tonight. If you cannot see that, you are blind. I mean, come on. What do you think? Is it true?
Partly so. Partly so. Some of the coaching was questionable, right? They did dig themselves in a hole at certain points in time, particularly in goal line situations, and goal line is almost 100% on coaching. But at the end of the day, when you orchestrate the drive, that's also on coaching. So it's a little bit of both, as is true.
Okay, so I'm going to say that, yes, there were some coaching blunders in there that I was not happy with. I think the 2 fourth down calls that they had, one, they did a flow pass. That was a terrible concept. They tried against Indiana. It didn't work then. Then they tried it against Notre Dame. It didn't work. And then they had the end around sweep. And I'm like, dude, I mean, we're making this game about toughness. Direct run it. Don't run it side to side. But the idea that Kyle McCord, as a guy who doesn't have a ton of experience, can operate with less than 90 seconds on the clock, take the team down the field, and they can win the game on that, that's good coaching. So I would say that Ryan Day got that part right.
Do you know what bad coaching is? On the flip side, Notre Dame, 10 guys on the field, back-to-back plays on with the game on the line. You want to talk about bad coaching? Let's direct our energy to South Bend.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Big Ten show, so I'm going to leave them alone, but come on, Marcus, you can't do that. Okay, so we have a comment here. Baseball Man says, Ryan Day picked on an old man. These kids don't know Lou Holtz from Lou Bega. So the idea here is Ryan Day pregame, when he was talking to the sideline reporter, was people made comments about us. Halftime, he was all turned up. And then after the game, he said, Lou Holtz? I can't believe he would say that about our team. We're a tough team. That was Ryan Day. I mean, what do you think? He's going after a dude who's like 98 years old.
On one end, I saw it. I said, wait, this is good if you're Ohio State. I want to see a little passion from Coach. It hasn't been good enough in Columbus. Get pissed off a little bit. You just won a big one on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I like it, but I hadn't heard Lou Holt's comments at the time, so I went back and looked at it. I said, oh, wait. That reaction probably not warranted to what Lou Holtz had to say. But here's my underlying theme here.
Make it big picture. When
you win a game, it's not about proving to yourself. It's not about proving to somebody about what you just did. It's all focused on how to improve. Do you know what would be much scarier? For Ryan Day to sit up there? Remember when C.J. Stroud said we were sick, we were injured, it was snowing? Do you know what's scarier? To sit there and say, yeah, Ryan Day, you win. Yes, we won. But it wasn't good enough. This is still not to the Buckeye standard. We have so much work to do. We're going to be back in the office tomorrow to get it corrected. That's scarier than trying to come at Lou Holtz.
Yeah, I think Lou Holtz was just the punching bag for Ryan Day, right? Like, I think this is something that people have been saying since 2021 up in the big house, the way they got ran out of there in the second half. But I'm going to disagree with you on the fact that the whole we can get better, and it's hard to win games on the road in college football. It's a young team. I think they got to use this as we're going to celebrate right now, and then I'll correct during the bye week type situation.
From a fear standpoint, though, in a respects, what do you think it communicates to the opponents if you just come off a win, a great win, and you sit there and say, this still isn't to our standard?
I don't know. I mean, I watched Kirby sit there and talk about how, point to other people on the outside. He wasn't talking about his standards. Jim Harbaugh, the first time he beat Ohio State, it was kind of the same thing, right? It was about the outside noise and not necessarily their standard. I think it's par for the course for a lot of these coaches.
Fair enough. I just still go back to, like, the fire in the program, and I know I'm dwelling on the past year, but when C.J. Stroud, they lose in Ann Arbor, and he said, oh, well, it was snowing, we were a little sick, it was this, it was that.
Don't bring that up.
But if you just sit here and say, yeah, they got us. Yeah, they got us. Wasn't good enough. We're going to work all offseason to get it corrected. Then it's like, okay, they mean business. But when you try to lessen the blow of imperfection, I always think it's more strong to say we have to be better. We can be better.
I'm with you after a loss. I think it's got to be tough there.
And that's the difference here is the loss versus the win. So rightfully so. Let's stay in the Big Ten East. Let's go to Michigan State. We got another comment on Michigan State. So Michigan State, they're in a dark place right now. Let's look at Cedar Village Bagel. What do you say? Shut the lights off and let me know when Tom and the boys are ready to hoop. Are you saying it's a basketball school by now, Cedar Village? Joshua.
They're definitely saying it's a basketball school.
Take it away.
I think there are a lot of Spartans right now that are just waiting until they hire the next coach. And they're putting all their effort into what they can do on the hardwood, and I don't necessarily blame them. You had them as the worst team in the conference. I had them as the second worst team. We can agree that they're terrible. It's a tough one, man. I can't clean it up for you. Like, I'm probably there with you if I'm a Michigan State fan.
I mean, there's really nothing. What's the standard here? What's the expectation here? Does Michigan State, now you're fighting to say we need to make a bowl game. That's not going to be good enough in East Lansing, right? I just think this program is at an absolute crossroads. Things are going to get much harder when the divisions are done away with and you add 4 big brands. This next coaching hire is critical. You are the second best team in your own state. Recruiting is not going to get any easier. Ooh. This is a pivotal moment in Michigan State football history.
All right, I see you sounding like a Michigan man with the shots fired right there. All right, I want to get this last one in because we're running low on time. But the Iowa message boards, they're out there with their torches and pitchforks after losing to Penn State. Stoops' brother posted, Ferentz era needs to be over. Offense looks so hard to run. No reason or logic to play calls. A lot of cussing going on in there. I canceled my Swarm membership, which I think might be the Collective. I'll stop buying Iowa merchandise. I won't buy another game ticket. Everything done. And, I mean, I don't have words that I can use on TV that are strong enough to describe how bad that offense is. If a team can run more plays and by 20 or so than you had in total yards, blow the whole thing up. Blow the whole thing up because it's unacceptable.
Wow. No, that's a jarring stat. I wonder how many times that's happened in history. Warranted. What's so frustrating for Iowa fans is where can you point to say we got better this year? Where? We brought in Cade. You thought it'd be better. Cade.
They ruined him.
Struggled. But here's my thing, though. It can't just be enough to say this isn't good enough. What needs to improve? It's easy to say it's Spencer Petras. It's easy to say it's Cade McNamara. It's easy to say a lack of weapons. When Iowa's been good, the offensive line play has been good. The offensive line play hasn't even been average in the past few years. That's your backyard. You should be able to recruit and develop offensive line. Nothing works unless you have an offensive line in Iowa. That was another horrendous performance, allowing Penn State, which is disruptive, to be even more disruptive against you. You got no chance.
Yeah, I just go back to the idea, though. We knew what Cade looked like when I know he was surrounded by talent, but when he was coached competently. Mm-hmm. And now we see him in this system, and he looks like a completely different player. And I know they put more on him because he's he doesn't have the wide receivers in the offensive line, to your point, abysmal. But this is problematic. Like, this does not look like big-time Division I football. This does not look like a team that has been a contender in their division for a while. We got to hang up on this conversation, but we do have a comment from T-Bob, who's hosting Rivals Down South, if we get that pulled up.
Herbert maybe showed resilience, but could hardly get a yard when it mattered unless Notre Dame had 10 people on the field.
Wow, that's hate right there. We're not going to do that.
Sounds like
an
SEC guy.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow, guys.